Okay, so we can all hear me now, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Great, thank you. So some people say they want, either they want financial freedom, or they want society, or they want peace of mind, or they want build assets, they want good health, they want education. But some people, go a step forward and say that they want, retirement style, right? And retirement style requires us to be able to understand exactly. Thank you. It requires that you understand what it means to want to retire in style, right? Understand what it means. And the best way I know to explain how this works is to sort of, take you a little bit back to a blank slide like this. Now, usually when I work with, when I do training bands, organizations, most people are thinking about time. When I talk about time, they're like, oh, it's great, but my pension fund and all that is taking care of it, and that's okay. But I want to show you an analysis that might sort of ruffle you a little bit, right? So imagine if you have a job that allows you to put away 50,000 every month to a retirement saving. Now, I'm not saying you will earn 50,000 every month. I'm saying you can put away 50,000 every single month to your retirement saving. Video, please send me a message if you can hear me very, very well. I need to be sure. So if you put away 50,000 to your retirement saving, that would be 600,000 a year, right? Let's assume that you could work on that job for, say, 20 more years at relatively the same level until you have to retire. Let's assume also that your pension fund will give you 10% guaranteed interest on your contribution, right? Let's assume that your pension fund will give you 10% guaranteed interest on your contribution, right? Now, let's assume that you then get something more. So when you work for 20 years, you get 20 years of savings, you get 10% guaranteed interest, you then get something called compounded interest, right? It's called the magic of money. It's the ability for money to sort of, grow astronomically. When you do retire, you have about 32.2 million in your retirement account. How many of us here would love to have 32.2 million in our retirement accounts? How many of us? In the comment section, how many of us would love this? Trust me, you would rather have it than not have it. But how many of us would love to have this kind of money in your retirement accounts? Just yes, if you would. Yes, if you would. I want to have, it's a lot of money. It makes a lot of sense. Beautiful. That's great. Now, and this is great. It's better to have this than not to have this. But the problem with this calculation is that Robert Kiyosaki says that there are three sides to every story. That's the side that we're told, the side we give, and then there's the truth. How many of us would like to get the truth now? Because the truth oftentimes is not as beautiful as it first appears. Now, the problem here is that we're being sold 32 million. It's exciting today to have 32 million, but how exciting will it be in 20 years? Because the problem here is that we're being sold tomorrow on today's excitement. Now, to understand how exciting it will be in 20 years, for example, is back to a previous year. Let's go back to like 1985. If my dad had, say, 3,500, he could buy a brand new car. Of course, not a Maserati and all that, but a brand new car nonetheless. A Peugeot 504, a Beetle, something really cool. And of course, in 1985, 3,500 wasn't back pocket change. It's not the kind of money that you can visit your uncle and then you're going home and then he gives you 3,500. If you had 3,500, for example, it was because you had a very good job, because 3,500 in 1985 was some civil servant's annual pay, or you had very civil. So my father decides he's going to save that money, right? He does that every year for 20 years. He gets 10% guaranteed interest, 20 years, and he gets compounded interest. The same factor that produced our 32 million naira right here. In 20 years' time, we'll have 220,600. Right? Which is a loss coming from 3,500, but he's going to get this money in 2005. 2005, 224,600. Would I buy me a brand new car? No. Would I buy me a fairly used car? Definitely not. It wouldn't even buy me a useless car. And that's why financial analysts tell us that even though saving is a good habit, it's a very bad strategy, because it's losing value. You're saving something that is losing value faster than it is gaining numbers. And that's why we always tell people it is better to save up for an investment than save up as an investment. Save your money, buy a house, save your money, buy a land, save your money, start a business. If the strategy is saving money, then you're bound to lose a lot of money because you're saving something that's losing value faster than it's getting numbers. Now, when you figure out what you want with life, then you come to Strategy Factory, and it's a 10-hour business strategy workshop. And because it's a business strategy workshop, the first thing that we like to always deal with is the big question, the question that we all can answer to. What is a business? And by the way, anything you say as definition would be correct. Trust me, it would be correct. There is absolutely no wrong definition for what a business is. What I'm really just going to share is my opinion. So I'd like to see in the comment section, can anybody just share with me that by their own definition, by their own review, what do you think a business is? Let me hear it in the comment section. Type it in, and then we would discuss it. And if you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself and also talk if you want to. What is a business? Anybody? What is a business? You can talk, you can type, depending on which one you want to do. I'm looking at the comment section. I want to get one or two definitions, and then I'll introduce you to our definition. And in about an hour, we'll be done at 1:20. In fact, because the entire class is 15 minutes. In about an hour, we will give you one of the most important definitions of what a business is and help you understand how to get into, how to start your strategy journey and make a lot of money in your business. Some of us are typing. I can see some of us are typing. Does anybody want to just talk? You can unmute yourself if you need to. I can see Mr. Sansi Kabiru. You want to say something? Anybody with the definition from me of what a business is? Waiting 1 more minute. One more minute.
Business or commercial activity that is carried out for the purpose.
So I heard business is a commercial activity that's carried out for the purpose of, I didn't get the last part. Oh, I didn't get the last part. Business is a commercial activity that is carried out for the purpose of X. I didn't get that.
Making profits. Purpose of carried out for the purpose of making profits.
Making profits. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Well, any other person? One more person, and then we'll move on. That's a fantastic definition, by the way. If you're making profits, what do you gain? I mean, what are you doing all of this for if you're not making money? Right? Any other person that wants to either say it out or type it out? Okay, so let me just work with that definition. I guess some of us are not. Work with that definition, and then let me introduce you to one definition that I consider very, 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 very important. In fact, by my own estimation, it's one of the best definitions that I have seen of a business, right? And it's by Josh Kaufman, and it's in his book called The Personal MBA. Josh Kaufman says that a business is a repeatable process, and please keep that when we come to class, for those of us that are being talked about it critically. But he says that a business is a repeatable process that does 5 things. So we'll explore 5 things. The first is that There's a repeatable process that creates the thing of value, right? So, and this thing of value that they're delivering, creating and delivering, is something that other people want or need, and they're delivering it at the price that these customers or clients are willing to pay, in a way that will satisfy customers and expectations. And lastly, going to the point of our friend at the time, so that the business brings in enough profits this was and I was trying again. Sorry. So we'll just jump straight into my definition. Right? So, like I said, a business is a repeatable process that, number one, creates and delivers something of value. Two, that other people want or need. Three, at a price they're willing to pay. Four, in a way that satisfies the customers' and expectations. And then five, to the definition that we received earlier, so that the business brings in enough profit to make it worthwhile for the owner to continue operation. So these five things are very, very critical to how a business works, right? So we're going to spend the next 20 minutes trying to understand this definition. So we talked about the fact that the business, number one, delivers and creates something of value. So the question I want us to start to think about, and this is very important, is how valuable is the offers, what we're bringing into the market? How valuable is it, right? Because sometimes we're in a business and business has lost its value. For those of us that, some of us heard me talk about this on radio. I mentioned that, for example, a couple of years ago, it made sense to get into like a cyber cafe business, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to be in that business today. A few years ago, it made sense as a business, I'm not talking about as individuals now, but as a business to produce and sell a lot of laptops. As we get increasingly into the mobile future, it's making less and sorry, gosh, today is just one hell of a day. I'm sorry, my internet, and we have 3 different internets. Yeah, I know. Gosh, I don't know how to do that. Okay, I think it's better now. It's better now. Can you hear me? Hear me? How many of us can hear me, please?
The voice is still breaking.
I can.
Just give me a second. I'm trying to shift to a different internet now. That should help. Is it better now? Can you hear me better now? Please, can somebody say yes?
Yes.
Better.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so like I was saying, so the first question in trying to find out whether my business is valuable, whether I'm bringing value to the table, I need to ask how valuable is what I'm bringing. And there are 4 ways to be able to check whether my business is valuable in the market today, right? And so we're going to look at those 4 ways and then see. And why we're doing this is this. In this room, there are some of us that are running businesses that, in all honesty, we might need to shut those businesses down or at least change the way the business is going forward. There are some of us that have not started businesses yet, and we're thinking about what business are we supposed to start so that we can then go in the right direction. So the first question you must ask is, this idea that I'm pursuing to become a business, or this business that I'm doing, does it serve a huge expanding market? Very, very important. Is the size of the market expanding or is it shrinking? It's important that you get into a business that the market size is expanding. And it's important that you stay away from a business when the market size is shrinking. Why? Because no matter how good you are as a business, you cannot be bigger than the size of the market. For example, some people are in the recharge card business right now. Even though the size of people buying airtime is increasing, because in 2008 to 10, we were spending about 2.3 billion every day on airtime. And as at last 2 years, we're spending about 9.6 billion every day on recharge cards, on airtime rather. However, the way we buy airtime has shifted. Most of us, for example, might not remember when last we bought airtime from the streets, on a card. Most of us now buy electronically, either from agents or from, our banks, as it were. So the idea here is that if you are trying to get into a business, the size and the expanding or contracting size of the industry is very, very critical, because you only want to get into a market that is expanding, right? The second question is, see this business that I'm trying to get into, can I build it into something that is unique? Because uniqueness is very, very powerful. It's important that people are looking for you and not just your product category. It's important that people are looking for your product in particular and not just your product category. Because it's better for people to want to buy your own brand of food than just wanting to buy food. It's better for people to want to buy your own brand of phone than just wanting to buy phone, right? And sometimes the way we achieve that uniqueness is not by creating a new and different product. Sometimes it's by how we even sell a very common product, right? So let me give you a very, very simple illustration. Most of us here know USSD code, like *737, right? Most of us know those codes. What bank do you think started USSD code banking? Anybody? Type it in the comment section. What bank do you think started the USSD code banking? What bank? I'm not going to give any suggestions. Any bank, anybody. Somebody says Zenith, somebody says UBA, somebody says GTB, 2% GTB, 3% GTB, 4% GTB. Okay, anybody else who wants to give it a go? Is it GTB or is it somebody else? Now, most people on this call will say GTB. And if you say GTB, you'll be wrong. But there's a reason why you said GTB, and that's what we want to explore. Because that's the point of this. That's the point of this. Now, when GTB started, GTB we're not the first or second to come in with USSD code banking. The first bank to actually start USSD code banking was First Bank. And when First Bank started it was sort of on the back of the success of a company like Paga, that had sort of increased access to financing to the, what do you call those people? To the rural communities and all that, sort of banking the unbanked, right? And so when they started it, the idea was, let's get out there, let's educate market women, let's educate all people to get on board. But it didn't really succeed because there was a communication gap between the guys wearing tie and the people in the market. And that communication gap was a real problem. Right now, the Stanbic IBTC also got it in, but most of Stanbic people were corporate people anyways, and USSD code banking was going to fly very easily with them. When GT Bank started theirs, they asked the question that I don't think most other banks have asked before, and the question was simple: who should we be educating? Who are our influential market rather? And in the strategy fact, we talk about that, trying to identify who your key influencers are. And so GT Bank decided that they were going to educate people between the ages of 18 and 25. And so the best way to educate those people was to release their ad as a song. That 737 song, as I'm even talking about itself, is ringing in some of us' head. And why was that important? Because they realized that demography was so critical. And that demography are the kind of people that always need money from their parents, from their uncle, from their aunt. And they'll be like, uncle, please send me money. They'll be like, no, I can't go to the bank. I'm really sorry. No, you don't have to go to the bank. Why don't you just, download this or press *737? And so the person who is educating his uncle would do a very good job educating because he has something to gain from that education, which is money in his account, right? And because of that, more students opened the account. Because of that, they forced more parents to open the account. And over a space of a couple of years, almost everybody had a GT Bank account. In fact, most of us here might remember that it became sort of absurd when people essentially just assumed you had GT Bank accounts, right? And if you say you don't have, they'll be like, are you serious? You don't have a GT Bank account? That's exactly the point. Can you find a unique way, a unique product, or a unique way of communicating an already existing common product? Because uniqueness is key. The third thing is this idea that I'm pursuing, is it in its time? Because there's such a thing as timing in business, right? There's such a thing as timing in business. So sometimes a business comes in, of course, you don't want to come in after its time because the market is shrinking and so you're done, right? But here we're talking about even just coming in before its time. You see this point here, if you can see my screen, is the point where you get into a business before the business starts, the industry starts to take off. This is the sweet spot where you enter into the business at this point where the industry is essentially taking off. Now, why is it important to know the timing? Is that when you come into the business at this point, you are saddled with the responsibility to educate the market. And most oftentimes, businesses who start this education, they run out of money before they get to where the sweet spot is. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So if you think about a perfect example, you think about, most of us here know businesses like Facebook, Instagram, and all these guys. But what we might not remember are businesses like MySpace, High Five, those key businesses that did a lot of good work educating us about social networking, but effectively sort of ran out of steam when social networking began to pick up. So the question you need to ask yourself is, am I getting in before it's time? And if you're getting in before it's time, there are different things that you need to do. There are different things that you need to do in terms of being able to stay in business. And we talk about that extensively at the Strategy Factory. And fourth, does it give you leverage? Which is the way you're building your business. Are you building it in such a way that you have leverage? Meaning that does more success in that business mean more of your personal time or less? And you put a system in place and the like. Now, if your business passes all these 4 tests, then it means that you have reached the point where you have something that you can create and deliver to the market that is valuable, right? Because it's in the huge expanding market. You found some uniqueness either in the product or in the process of delivering the product. It's essentially in its time, or you figured out how to stay in business across time, and then it's also providing leverage for you. So, in this definition, is this thing that you've created must be something that other people want or need. So the question now is, how do you design a business that people really, really need all the time? And this is irrespective of whether the product is expensive or cheap. For example, for those of us that use the iPhone is one of the most, it's essentially the most expensive phone device in the world. But they sell billions of units, right? Because they've created a necessity, right? So I don't know if you've ever noticed this, right? Some of us might have noticed this before. Have you ever noticed that people who use iPhones, they act, there's a way in which they act like they've made it in life? How many of us have noticed that? Right? There's a way in which iPhone people act as if they've made it in life. Right? Have you noticed that? Someone says true. Exactly. So, and the funny thing is that feeling was engineered. In fact, if you study that, you realize the reason why Apple is currently the most valuable company in the world. Apple they have a market cap of more than 3 trillion at the moment. And way more than 2 trillion rather at the moment. Why? See, because when Steve Jobs came back into Apple, in the second coming, he did something that was significant. Apple were producing all sorts of things. There are photocopiers, all sorts of things. He scrapped all the products and tried to simplify Apple's product line into just a few products, right? And that seemed like a very, very simple move, but it's a big move. And this is what it means. If you see two people, for example, using a Samsung phone, two people using a Samsung phone produced in the same year, they might not feel like equals because one of them is using the Samsung S21 and the other one is using the Samsung A21. Right? So even though it's the same year, because of the class difference, they don't feel. But if you see two people using an iPhone produced in the same year or in any 2 to 3 year period, they immediately feel like equals. Why? Because he's created a simplified product, a product range that is not too much, and he's created a cool factor so that people feel like they're a part of it. Essentially a part of like a cool club, or you call it a cool cult. So the question is, how are you doing that with your business? How do being a part of your community, being a part of your customer, how does that make your customers feel, right? Are you doing something in that category? 3 is that you must create a product, a business rather, a product or service that people are willing to pay for. And this is not so much about how much money your product is, because there are no expensive or cheap products anywhere. No product is expensive, no product is cheap. The question is who is paying, right? Abraham Maslow talks about, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he explained that there are different people at different levels. People exist at different levels, right? That, and where they exist is dependent on sort of like their financial capacity. So a typical example would be food. So if you think about food, for example, and you say, let's assume I'm hungry. If I'm hungry and I have 200 naira in my pocket, I would be in this category here. I would go and maybe go to a buka, mama put somewhere. I'll have 200 naira would buy me a decent meal. I'll be fine, right? But if I had a bit more money to spend, like 700 to 800 to 1,000 naira, then I could just go to Chicken Republic here, right? And I'll be at the safety level, I'll be a little bit higher, and I'll eat some food, I'll be fine. If I had a little bit more money, maybe I had about 6,000 to 7,000 naira to spare, then I could come up here and maybe go to a restaurant like Rhapsody's or Casper and Gambini, somewhere nice, I'll have a decent meal, and I would eat. Now, if I had a bit more money, right, and I could afford about 20, 25, 30,000 there, then I could go to Sheraton or I could go to Marriott or go somewhere really nice, get their buffet, have a decent meal, and I would eat. Now, if I didn't have budget constraint, if I was independent and I was fine, then I could just essentially, go to the most expensive restaurant or fly out to the most expensive restaurant in the world or go to JW Marriott somewhere in Dubai and just have a nice meal and I'll be fine. Right? Now, where I go would be determined rather by my budget, and my budget will be determined by where I am in what is now known as the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And as a business, so as a food business, I can target different kinds of people, right? So the people the mama put here, the kind of person the mama put is targeting is different from the kind of person this person is targeting, different from the kind of person this person is targeting. Now, they can all make money, don't get me wrong. Where you target does not determine how much money you make. It's just that some people are targeting one place, but they are preparing for another place, right? They are targeting Mama Put, but they're expecting Bill Gates to come and eat there. No. Or they are targeting Bill Gates, but they're expecting to have daily revenue like somebody that has a Mama Put. No, it doesn't work like that, right? I'll give you a perfect example, personal example. So in 2019, I had the opportunity to speak somewhere in Lagos here, of course, alongside the MD of an oil and gas company. And we hit it up, we had a great conversation, and he invited me to lunch at his house, right? And so I go to his house, and how many of us here have been to the house of somebody that has made it in life? Yeah? If you've been to the house of someone that has made it in life, just type yes. I mean, I'm not talking about someone that is trying to make it, someone that you have arrived in the bus stop. Yeah? The person has reached the bus stop called made it in life. So I go to this man's house, and the house is beautiful. I mean, the house is still, the environment is still in my dream house, right? So I get there, and amazing house. And then the wife comes out, and the wife makes us a 6-course meal. I was familiar with 3-course meal, but this is a 6-course meal. The wife is, you know this man is wealthy because his wife is a chef, and she has no restaurant. She's having this really nice chef costume. She finished making this food. She comes out, and then she spends like 20 minutes explaining the science of the food to us before we eat. I'm like, God, when am I going to make it in life like this? So we are, we're about to start to eat, and the man's neighbor sort of comes in. Now, what I didn't know was that the man himself sort of likes food. Maybe that's why he married a chef, or why his wife became a chef. So he likes food, but not only does he like food, he travels around the world just to collect food. When people fly to somewhere just to eat food from that place and then fly back somewhere else. And he does that with one of his friends. And so his friends then come, his friend then came in, it happens to be his neighbor, say, oh, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, you didn't tell me you're going to eat, blah, blah, blah. So they sort of got talking. And now there are 2 people in the room who love food, and I'm there. And naturally, the conversation goes towards food. And then we start to talk. And then his friend had a very beautiful way that he talked about food. He would say something like, have you eaten that restaurant in VI, blah, 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 blah. If you taste their shrimps, you will know that God truly came to the earth. That kind of funny way of talking about food. And so he started, and then he would, talk about different places that he'd eaten, and then he would mention a place in VI, and mention a place in this, and, some of them I've been to, some of them I've not been to. So we just started talking, and then he mentioned a restaurant in Dubai. Fortunately, I've been to the restaurant in 2017, I believe. I had dinner at JW Marriott with one of my mentor, my wife, and the like. It was one of the best dinners I've ever had in my life. And then he would mention a restaurant in France, and incidentally, about 2 weeks before that particular day, I was in France. So so it started to feel like, this young boy, it looks as if it looks like you're coming up. I said, sir, I'm trying that. So he said, look, Ezekiel, I'm going to ask you for this one thing. If you've eaten it, I know that we're at the same level. I said, sir, we're not at the same level. He said, have you tasted blue tuna? I said, what is blue tuna? So I said, I should Google it. Men and brethren, I Googled blue tuna. It's a fish. The fish is $3.2 million. Yes, you just heard me right. $3.2 freaking million. Right? $3.2 freaking million fish. So he was now telling me about the fact that, if the most expensive fish in the world. Now, if you have to eat that kind of thing, you have to go to like Japan, and they would have like a small cube like this, and it'd be like $1,000, and you eat like 4 cubes. And I'm like, Uncle, I'm not yet at that level to eat blue tuna. I'm serious, you could literally Google that thing right now. In fact, the funny thing, I don't know if you remember. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that there was a guy in Bayelsa or Warri who caught it just a little bit after the pandemic and killed it. And God needs to punish that guy especially. He and his friends ate 3.2 million. Do you know what? 1 point something billionaire, all of them in that whole village would have had food for the next 100 years of their life. No, the devil will not allow them grow. They decided to catch a blue tuna fish and they ate it. They roast. See as their life has finished, right? Very, very much. So if you think about that blue tuna, the person who is trying to eat blue tuna is up here. Is not looking for this type of food here. But again, like I said, it doesn't matter where you position. It just matters that wherever you position, you are strategic about, how you attract the kind of people that you want to attract. Number 4 is in a way that satisfies the needs of the customers, customers' needs and expectations. So the question here is, how satisfied do you leave your customers? Now, and this is how I help businesses measure it. If 90% of the business that you always get is new business, not repeat business, you're not doing it right. You're losing a lot of money because you're not satisfying the customer or astonishing the customer enough for the customer to go out and talk to other people about you. A good share of your revenue must come from repeat business, must come from recurring business. If you don't have recurring business, you don't have repeat business, no matter how little you're spending on advertising or on marketing, you're still spending too much. No matter how little it is, you're still spending too much. All right? So the question is, what is your strategy? How are you getting that done? And lastly, before we go, is so that the business brings in enough profit to make it worthwhile for the owners to continue operation. Question here is, how profitable is your business? And on the back of this, I want to share something that I learned from Brian Tracy. I attended a program that he spoke at a long time ago. I didn't really remember most of what he said, but he said this, and this is very critical. He says, profits at the cost of the future. Your business, the future of your business has expenses, and the expenses is determined, how far your business can go is determined by how much profit your business is making. So think about it this way. Imagine if your business has 100 million naira in the bank and is not making any money anymore, and your spending rate was like 10 million per month. In 10 months, your business is going to need money. So the only way your business can continue making a lot of money is that it keeps generating profit. Why? Because wealth is not really measured in numbers. It's measured in time. It's not so much how much money you have as it is about how long that money can take you, right? So like I said, you have 100 million, your burn rate is 10 million a month. In 10 months, you'll be in trouble if you're not making any more money, right? So now I want to do a test. I want to run you through something that would enable you sort of find out maybe why your business isn't profitable, but also help you realize how big your business needs to get, all right? Now, but for this test, it's in the next slide. For this test, I need everybody here to go find a notepad, whether you could do it on your phone or find a piece of paper and a pen. And when you find a piece of paper, it would not take us more than 10 minutes to do this test, 10, 15 minutes to do this test, and we'll close today, right? Now, find a piece of paper and a pen, right? And when you find a piece of paper and a pen, I want you to come back to the comment section and I want you to write ready. So that I know that you're ready. This is going to be, trust me, this is going to be the most important activity that you have done this year. And for some of us, this might even be the most important activity that we've done, maybe even in our lifetime, right? I don't need everybody to be ready to do it. I just need a few people to be ready, right? So Chinonye says he's ready. I'd like to think that he is the guy. Rare Gem said he or she is ready. Who else? Who else is ready? I want to see ready from 5 people. Messi is ready. Who else? Florence is ready. Who else? Piece of paper, pen. I'm going to run you through something. Abiodun is ready. One more person. One more person says Paul is ready. Beautiful. So great. Now, what I want to run you through is I want to help you find out what level of expense you put on your business. And then let's now talk about how you're going to grow that number. So this is the next slide, but I don't want you to write anything from the next slide. I want to find out how much you spend every month. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be itemizing every single thing. So the first thing from our list is rent. So most of us now, I'm not saying that you write how much you pay for rent in your office. I'm talking about for your house. So if you don't pay rent in your house, that's okay. But if you do, most of us here pay rent, and your rent is annual, right? Now, I want you to take that annual amount and I want you to divide it by 12. So that would give you what is the monthly amount. So I want us to see, don't write it in the chat box, just write it in your piece of paper. Don't write anything, we don't want to see it. I want you to write down how much you spend every month. And once you finish that, I want you to write rent done in the comment section. So I know you have done that. Right? Don't forget, don't write the annual number. Write the annual number, divide that by 12, it'll give you the monthly figure, and then you write rent done. Good. Beautiful. Thank you so much. If you're not paying rent, that's good. Now, if your husband is paying the rent, write it though. When I say you're not paying rent, I mean you don't live in a rented apartment whatsoever. So that's important. Right, good. Great. So next thing is, the next one is transportation, right? So transportation is the fact that most of us here have cars, we drive. And if you drive, you probably spend money every week rather, for your car, maybe 5K, 10K. So whatever that number is, I want you to multiply by 4 and write how much you spend on fuel for your car. If you don't drive, how much do you spend on transportation? Maybe on buses, maybe 500 a day, 1,000 a day, times 30 days is about 30K. Or you use Uber. I want you to just think through, estimate how much you spend. And once you're done, I want you to write TP done. So that will tell me that you're done with transportation. Don't write the figure in the comment section, or just write TP done if you're done with that particular one. Thanks, Chinoye, for being sharp. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Messi is done too. I'd like to think that you intend to write TP. Okay, yeah, great. Oyinola is done. I think I know this Oyinola. She looks familiar. Okay. San Kabiru is done. Real Me Q is done. Oh, great. This is a fantastic class. The third is what we call utilities. So utilities is a bit tricky. So utilities, I want you to write utilities. And under utilities, most of us here have light bill. So you write light bill and you write the number. Most of us have some form of cable TV in our house, right? DSTV, Go TV, Strong TV, High TV, whatever it is, right? Most of us here have some form of estate dues, if you live in an estate, or security bill, if you live on the street and you have like security bill and the like. So whatever that is, write it down. Most of us here spend money on fueling our generators. Most of us have generators at home. Gas, whatever it is. Right? So whatever it is, once you write all of that, I want you to itemize them one after the other. Once you're done with all of that and write down the figure, I want you to write UT done. So that tells me that you're done with utilities. Right? UT, not IT, UT done. Let me know. Thank you so much. I need to send a package to Chinoye. Chinoye is on fire today. Great. Real Me Q is done also. Okunola Kende Samson is done with UT. Anybody else? Oyinola is done also. Great. Abiodun is done also. Who else? Oshisonya is done also. Messi is done also. Great. So that's quite a number of people. I'll move on to the next one. The next one is feeding cost. So feeding cost is not foodstuff in your household. Feeding costs pretty much only apply to those of us that live somewhere and work somewhere else, right? So there's a place close to your office where you buy food. It's a small budget, 500, 1,000, or 2 million if you belong to the blue tuna community. If you have enough money for blue tuna every afternoon. So it's usually a small budget, but whatever that budget is, there are 25 working days in a month, 25 working days. So multiply that small budget. For example, in my case, it's somewhere around 8,000 there. So you multiply that 25 by 1,000 naira. So that'll tell you how much money you spend on sort of your lunch per month, right? So when you're done with that, I want you to write FD done. So that tells me that you're done with that particular part of it. Oh, okay, great. You're driving, great. Don't be writing if you're driving. You might want to park if it's not that, if you're not in a hurry, and if you are, please, you can just follow through on the class and then get back to the recorded version and you're able to. Okay, great. So quite a number of us are done with that. I'll wait for one more person and then we move. One more person. Great. So the next is groceries. So groceries, this is like food stuff in your house, right? Groceries, this is food stuff in your house, food stuff, toiletry. It's usually a big budget for most of us, especially if you're married and you have kids, right? So, it's a big budget, food stuff, diapers, pampers, toiletries, soap, everything that is in your house is usually a big budget. When you're done, I want you to write GC done, whatever that budget is for you. It's usually a big budget if you're married. If you're not married, it might not be as big. But if you're married, you have kids, if you check it, it's a huge part of your budget. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lydia Stephen is done. Great. A lot of us, a surprising amount of us are following, and this is really great. Right? Anybody else done with groceries? Great, great. Abiodun is done. Who else is done? Great. Thank you so much. Next is our school fees. So school fees, right, is tricky. If your children are not yet in the university, for example, right, you pay school fees 3 times a year. So there's term 1, then you add that to term 2, and then you add that to term 3. That will give you the total. And then divide that total by 12. That will tell you what is due monthly. So that's what I want you to do, right? And of course, you do that for each child because there's no buy one, get one free school yet. Right? So and then once you're done with that, I want you to write SF done. Now, if you don't have children yet, or your children are already done with school, that's okay. And if you still pay for courses and all that, what would amount to, or your own personal development budget, what would amount to school fees. So it's important that you write something down, right? So good. Some of us are running this. Thank you so much. Anybody else? If it doesn't apply to you, just write SF done so that we can move on to the next one. Okay, Messi, great. Abiodun is done also. Who else is done? Who else is done? Who else is done? Who else is done? Chisonia is done. Florence is done. We're almost done. We'll be out of here by 125 max. And that's only because of the plenty drop in and out with the internet. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. We're almost done. Next is what we call personal expense. Personal expense is how much you spend on yourself, right? It's usually not a lot of money, except if you belong to the Ashebi gang and all that kind of stuff. So personal expense. Again, for ladies, manicure, pedicure, hairdo, all that, bone straight, bone bend, all that stuff. And once you're done, I want you to put PE done. So that means personal expense is done. Okay, Lydia, thanks. Chinoye is done. Real Milk Q is done. Who else is done? Abiodun is done. Great. I wait for 2 more people. Kunola is Kehinde Samson is done. And lastly, Messi is done. Great, thank you. Then the next is childcare expense. Childcare expense is how much you spend on your children that is not school fees. So again, you have to think about how much you spend on your kids. It's not related to school fees. You know, whether it's the child is not yet in school yet, and you have to, or you spend money on the nannies and all of that. But I want you to be able to, you know, sort of find that. And once you're done, I want you to write CC done, not CCE, childcare expense done, CC done. Great, thank you, Chinoye, for that. Grateful. Real Me is also done, good. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so let's run. So communication. Communication is airtime and data. Communication is how much you spend on airtime, how much you spend on data. You know, it's usually well from 2020 it became such a big budget, right? Right. So I want you to write communications comms, COMS done if you've captured that expense for yourself. So comes done if you have captured how much you spend on airtime and how much you spend on data. Great, thank you so much. Chineye, Oyinola, Abiodun, Lydia, Stephen, Florence. Wow. I'm actually happy that you guys are still, I mean, most people give up at this point. Most people don't make it this far. Next is giving. Giving is sort of very tricky. It's, you know, some people think, oh, my giving is irregular, but if you really think about it, the last 10, 20, 20 months, it's pretty much has been, the same, right? How much you give, some people give to God, some people give to their parents, and the like. So I want you to write giving, done. Whatever it is, just try and find like a reading. Just think about it, you'll find that a number, you're always moving around a certain amount of people. A certain amount of money in terms of what you give. So, giving done, GV done. Great, thank you. That's amazing. Giving done, 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 giving done. Okay, great. And then lastly is other expenses. So other expenses are whatever it is that I haven't mentioned that, so for example, some of us here have drivers. I didn't mention that because not everybody does. Some of us here have house helps and horticulturists and, all that stuff. Some of us here travel. Like for me, it's a big part of my life. I save for it every month, right? So some of us here travel. We go to different parts of the world. We go to France, we go to all these really nice places, so you should cover that in the other expense. And once you're done with the other expense, I want you to write all done. All done. So that's going to tell me that you've at least gotten to the final one, all done. Now, once you write all done, I want you to add up all of the things that you have written, which would then don't write the answers here. They're supposed to be in your notepad only. All of the things, that you have written, and which should capture your monthly expense, your entire monthly expense. That's a picture of how much you spend every month. I want you capture all of that. I want you to just sort of tell me, just write in the comment section if you're shocked or if you knew it all along. Some of us might never have done this before and it might be shocking to us, but I want you to write it. And once we're done, I have 2 questions to ask, only 2 questions to ask, and then we'll round off this session. 2 questions. After this, 2 more questions, and then I'll be out of your faces. So how many of us have finished calculating everything, added everything up? If you finish adding, just let me type a reaction. How, you know, what you see and how you feel about this right now. How many of us have finished? If you're finished calculating it, I want you to type, yes, I have, so that I can know that we finished adding it up. Just add it all up. It should be a reflection of your monthly expense. Oh, great, thank you. If I get a few people, then I can then ask a question. Great, so a few people have answered, that's good. So we can move on to the next question. So the question I have now is, for those of us that have finished calculating this, right? That number that you wrote is essentially how much you spend in a month. So the question I have for you now is, does your business pay you that amount of money as salary in a month? Yes or no? It's a simple question. Does it pay you that kind of amount of money? The amount of money that you wrote, is that the amount of money that your business pays you? Yes or no? So if your answer is no, and that business is your only source of income, then you're actually stealing from the business. That's what it means. You're stealing from the business. You're stealing significantly. The next time you go to church and they ask you to pray against the cankerworm and the palmerworm, just keep your mouth shut. Except if the business is not your only source of income, you know? So the reality, just keep your mouth shut. Don't pray against the cankerworm and palmerworm, because if that angel Nathaniel standing in front of you decides to answer, you might go down with everybody else. I mean, I'm sure there are some cankerworm and palmerworm, but they are significantly collaborating with them, right? But that's not even the question we want to answer. The question we really want to answer in the strategy factory is this question. How big does your business need to get to be able to pay 20 people in your organization such a monthly salary? You see, this question is very critical, and it's the difference between staying small and growing big. See, because every one of us in this room, every one of us, no matter how small your business is, if you have one employee, as little as one employee, here's the thing. That employee, you've set something in motion with that employee. The employee sees your lifestyle, sees how you live, he sees things about you. And the very least that employee wants out of his or her life is what they see with you. The least, that's the very least that they want, is what they see with you. All right? And so the question now is, can your business, if that person were to work as hard as you want them to work, and the business, is your vision big enough? Is your vision big enough to deliver your lifestyle to that staff? If that person worked as hard, can your business grow so much that the amount of money you spend now can be paid to that person as a monthly salary? Because if you don't have that kind of plan, what would happen is that the person would work with you until they find a better job or until they get tired enough to go start their own. In fact, some of us in this room started our own business because we were working hard, and we looked at the way the organization was going, and we realized that to achieve the things that we want to achieve, we just couldn't stay here. So we struck out on our own. Question, are you building a business that will represent the dream of your staff? You see, because some of us, as we are building our businesses now, if Shell calls you now and say, come and become our CFO, you will shut down your business and go to Shell. Why? Because Shell represents, for you at least at the moment, a bigger dream than even your business. So are you building a business that represents the dream of the people that work in it? Or are you just building a business so that you can be okay? Because if you're building a business so that you can be okay, that's okay. You'll be okay. You would always need new staff because they would work for you, push you to a level, and they will run away. But if you're interested in building a big business, then maybe we need to talk. Maybe you need to show up for our next strategy factory class on the 25th of February, right? Because we've had the privilege of working with quite a number of businesses, 33 businesses right now that do over $1 billion a year. In fact, some of our clients, some of the clients that we're working with, we have a client that do over 1.7 billion a month in revenue. And we've supported this client and we're helping them reach the next level of their business, right? And so we want to bring this massive amount of content to you. And we want to provide you all these topics. We're going to go through all these different topics, from what is a business, which we just did. We're going to talk about strategy, story, and state. We're going to talk about value proposition, developing a USP, market segmentation. We're going to talk about strategy. We're going to talk about people, processes, and controls. We're going to try and help you understand the market, understand the forces outside your market that affect your business, called the personalities. We're going to help you understand your industry. In respect, we've worked with businesses from every industry imaginable, and we've helped businesses grow into over $1 billion in revenue from every industry imaginable, from pharmaceuticals to medical services to technology to agri to travel and tours. I mean, we have all those guys in our clientele, and we guarantee that we can get you to the next level. We're going to talk about the KLT principle. We're going to talk about business networking. We're going to talk about selling. We're going to cover about 35 different topics. And this is not even exhaustive because we've added a few more things to the class. We're going to cover about 35 different topics, 35 different business topics over a 10 to 12 hour period. But here's the beautiful thing. Those sessions are also going to be mad fun, right? It's going to be very exciting. You won't even be aware that you spent that much time in the place. And the Strategy Factory, for those of us that even heard it on radio and all of that, is 120,000 there. It holds at the Lagos Marriott Hotel. Now, why do we do it at Marriott? Two reasons. One, I believe very strongly that where you learn is more important than what you learn. The environment is very critical. It's the reason why, even though people are learning in Abulegba and in Ikoyi, they're learning the same wire curriculum. The direction of their life isn't going in the same direction. The second thing is that we wanted to create an environment where all kinds of people can come and learn. So what I tell you this, and it's a massive, massive networking opportunity for a lot of people that come to class. Because in the class, for example, in every of our class, we usually take about 25, 30 students max. But in every of our class, we would have 5, 6 people who do over $1 billion a year in their business as participants, and maybe another 10 to 15 people whose business do at least $100 million a year. So no matter how big or how small your business is, you're in the room with somebody who can even be the key to your next level business. I mean, we've seen situations where a guy sells a few cars in a year, is in the room with one of the top real estate companies who at that time needed to buy 15 cars. Guess what? In fact, the guy, before coming to Strategy Factory, he only sold 4 cars a year for whatever the reason. I said, look, aside from the strategies that you will learn from the class, you probably will meet some interesting people. And in the class, we met some business that was looking to buy 15 cars as promos. What do they do? I mean, incentives for the people, for their realtors, and the connection was made, and the rest, we say, is history, right? So, for those of us that are on this call, and just those of us on this call, by the way, for those of us on this call, right, we are going to offer you the opportunity to pay as little as to shave off 20,000 naira off the cost and pay 100,000 naira for the class. Now, again, because we're using Marriott, it's the #1 hotel brand in the world. And like I said, where you learn is more important than what you learn. You're going to get the opportunity, of course. There's going to be buffet lunch and drinks, and there's going to be tea break twice, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, and lunch in the afternoon. We're going to feed you till you drop. But more important than that, you get access to the Strategy Factory course. Afterwards, you get access to the class that you attended. It's always recorded. Put it all together and send it to you. You have access to the alumni. We have a Facebook community. For those of them that join the Facebook community, get an opportunity to sort of interact pretty well. Each person who attends class, every single person who attends this class is going to get a 1-hour post-Strategy Factory session with me. 1-hour session with me personally, right? 1-hour session with me. Some people flying into Lagos, I can see some people that have attended the class before. Some people fly into Lagos, finish the class, go back, so that one-on-one session can happen via Zoom. Some people, are in Lagos, and over the next 2 to 3 weeks, So it's one of the reasons why we don't allow a lot of people coming to class. The maximum is 30 because we schedule it in such a way that I can have the opportunity to meet with every single person during the course of the month, right? And then you also get an additional Zoom session on selling. That happens about 1 week after the class. Now, we've had a situation where some people had to join this class. I mean, we've had situations where people had to fly in, we've had people flying from Ghana, from Kenya, in 2019, 2020, from Liberia. But we've also had sessions where times when people can't come in for whatever reason, or maybe they're in Lagos or whatever it is. So for the same amount, we provide access to them. We stream the entire class live on Zoom, so you have access to the entire class. You're able to participate in the class. But also, more important than that, is that unlike those of them that attended the live class, when they have one session, we get 2 sessions with me. We get 1 session before the class, and we get another session afterwards, right? So for those of us that are ready to pay within the next 1 week, this offer is only available for the next 1 week. So this Friday to next Friday. You could pay direct to that account. You could take a snapshot of this, or you could again contact Vivian. Vivian is the one that is the admin on the group for those of us on the WhatsApp group. If you're not on the WhatsApp, because I know some of us haven't joined the WhatsApp group, but also got this maybe on our mail or by WhatsApp and all that. So you take a screenshot and you could pay for the class, and then you will then have the opportunity, send the details to Vivian. Vivian will follow you through all the process. And so this only lasts for a week, right? So I want to ask very quickly, I like to do this because I want to provide some added service. Now, if you're in this room, now, because you're in the WhatsApp group, we don't really know all the different people there, but if you're in this room right now and you say to yourself, I want to be part of the class, just so that we can note you down specifically before I start to ask questions, can you help us just write your full name and your phone number in the comment section, in the chat section rather, so that we can note it? Because I want to give a phone call to everybody who pays before. And by the way, even if you don't have the full money, if you pay any part of it within the next 1 week, it will lock you in to the class, and then you can balance up before the class. So that some people that will pay everything up before the next 1 week. If you don't, good, you could pay part of the money within the next 1 week, and then it locks you in at that price, so you don't have to pay any extra, and then you balance it up by Thursday, 24th, before the class. So you can just lock it in. I know I'm coming to class, and I'll see all of you in class. Thank you so much, Abiodun, for sending in your number. Thank you so much. Anybody else? So again, you could, once you pay, you can send a WhatsApp message to Vivian. Her number is 09090008887. It's a very easy number to remember, or she also would chat us all in the group. And then for those of us that are interested, would be able to get into the class. So now I'm open for questions. Thank you so much, Sanusi Hamed, for committing to the class. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Anybody else wants to come into the class? And I'm also open for questions. Any question? Any question? So it's important that you ask questions, especially if you're looking to come to class, because if we know your questions, it also helps us to reshape. So each class is sort of unique because we want to, everybody who pays and is looking to attend the class, I would have a phone conversation, about a 5 to 10 minute conversation with you initially, because I'd like to understand your business, understand what you do, and make sure that the class is very, very, very tailor-made for you, not just in terms of the knowledge that you get, but more importantly, also try and see how we can pull resources together that we know within the community, and just sort of make announcements to those people, oh, this kind of person is coming in, and so that they can, you and them can start to look at opportunities, look towards opportunities of sort of doing business together, right? So any questions before we call it an afternoon? Thank you so much for your time. Vivian is going to follow up with every one of us, and the recorded version of this class is also going to be available for those of us that Any other question? You could type it, or you could just say it if you can. If you would love to unmute yourself. Mercy, thank you so much for Mercy. Please, can you just help us drop your number also? Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Grateful. Okay, who else? Or if you have any question, that would also be good. I know some of us are gonna try and make a decision, much later. That's okay also. But these are the people that are saying, I want to come immediately, I want to be part of it, I want to try and see how I can get in quickly. For those people, would definitely work towards getting you into the class immediately. Okay, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. It's 1:25. Please, I've been added to the group, so I'd like to see your feedback on the group. So please, I'd really appreciate that. Over 33 of us in class. Please share your feedback on the group. I'd really love to see. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.